Carpenter. I'm the director of One Giant Leap Australia Foundation, and we run a program called Seeds in Space. And the Seeds in Space program, without Deb, would not be so successful because we got seeds to the International Space Station and back again. So we'll put, we have, what I'll do is put in the chat ways that people can look this up. But I wanted Deb to talk about how important it was to follow all the guidelines. You don't just get seeds and start mailing them around the world. It's really, really important to our biosecurity that we do it all properly. So I made sure everything was done properly. But Deb's the leading expert in this. And the funny thing is, we'd never done it before. They weren't worried about stuff going to space. You were worried about it coming out from another country, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So usually when we're looking at any, I suppose, animal products as well, there's things like cars, electrical equipment. There'll be certain biosecurity risks. So plants have their own biosecurity risks, animals have other biosecurity risks. Things like cars and electrical equipment may be to do, say, cars with soil on the tyres if it's a second-hand car. And other things could be, you know, just the packaging, the container it comes in may have risks as well, like the seed container as well. So, but when we look at seed, we tend to look at any viruses or bacteria, any fungi, any insects that may affect, if they get into Australia, could cost into the millions of dollars to control and affect Australian agricultural industry. We were lucky with the Acacia pycnantha seed, so the golden wattle seed, that it is a permitted seed. So for when it came in, it needed the documents to be inspected that it came in with. It needed a visual inspection. It didn't need testing for contaminants because it was too small, the amount of seed that came in. But if it passed that visual inspection, it was free to leave biosecurity control. And when something leaves biosecurity control, that means it's allowed to enter Australia.
Yeah. So without Deb, I could not have done it because her guidance and everything to make sure that this was all properly done so that we did not do anything that could have upset the ecology of our country. And biosecurity at the moment with all the COVID stuff, it was just trying to get a hold of each other was quite hard. But if anyone wants to do anything to do with seeds, Deb's the person. So without her, like I said, we would not have been able to do this. And I don't know if I've told you, Deb, but we left 10 seeds. We gave them to the Australian Embassy in Tokyo, and they're going to grow them. The people there are going to grow them, and they're going to gift some of them to the imperial family of Japan and to the future Prime Minister of Japan. That's how important this project is between countries, but it's done properly, and it's only because of Deb's knowledge that we were confident that everything was done to the nth degree. And then just as we were going to have that photo shoot, Canberra went into lockdown. And
yes.
So getting them out of Canberra was probably one of the hardest things, right? Deb was sending me pictures of a hand with a key and a lock going, they're in the cupboard, because we're all scared about, you know, they're irreplaceable for the Australian community. So, but, you know, having you as an advisor has been brilliant.
We were one day off getting a photo with the secretary of our department and the Japanese ambassador and the Australian Space Agency and One Giant Leap Australia Foundation. So one day short, and then we went into lockdown. So yeah.
And it's been a great learning experience. So has anyone got any questions who are in the audience about any of this? I will put up shortly a thing about our Seeds in Space program There is over 180,000 students involved in this project and over 17,000 teachers. So 300 locations around Australia, and we've still got a few people applying to do the project. So I do know there are some people in the audience who are actually part of the project, and I wanted them to see that it's not just one person or just one Giant Leap Foundation doing this, but it's working hand in hand with government, with policy people, with the right people to make sure that everything is right. Because I'm one of those people that goes away when you can travel, and I come back and I make sure I declare everything when I arrive back, to the point of chocolate biscuits, peanuts in my luggage. Like if I happen to buy a snack, and like everything, I just declare everything, because I don't want to do things to our country that will destroy things for people's wealth or their their jobs or anything like that. Okay, so someone's just asked, why were the seeds sent into space? So we sent the seeds to space. We were given the opportunity by the Japanese Space Agency to send seeds into space. And so to look at, would going to space have an impact on the germination of the seeds? There's also a whole thing around biology and growing things to live in other places. There's a whole range of things also about growing plants in space for your mental health and all of that. So we were asked, did we want to send the seeds to space? So we took the opportunity and said yes, and then we had to decide. One Giant Leap Australia Foundation had the opportunity to decide what kind of seeds, and we thought, because this was the first ever opportunity, it had to be the Australian national floral emblem, the wattle, and that's how the wattle seeds went to space. And they were there for 7 months and went up on a SpaceX rockets, but they probably had the biggest journey. They went from here to Japan, Japan to America, America up on the rocket, 3,186 trips around the Earth, back down into America, into the ocean off Tallahassee in Florida, over to JAXA, and then here to Australia, then Canberra, and then out of the cupboard in Canberra to Sydney, where we've distributed them out to lots and lots of different locations.
We have another question, and the question is, how did you guys become passionate about this?
This is for Deb, yeah?
Yeah.
How did you become passionate about your job, Deb?
Me? I grew up on a farm, studied agriculture, married, was on the farm for 11 years. So really it's just to follow on from my interest and sort of passion in the agricultural industry. It's an amazing industry. Farming is an amazing lifestyle. And it's just, yeah, that's my background is why I'm passionate, really.
We have another question. What was the biggest challenge of getting the seeds to space? How did you overcome this?
I met Deb. She was the best problem solver, because I didn't know what problems we were going to have. I just said yes. And then it was trying to find someone. And then I met Deb, and she's so passionate about her job. She was determined to help me make it happen. And it takes a team, right, Deb?
It does take a team. And I think it's just lucky too that I'd also worked in the export space. So I knew, someone in exports who could help. And it was getting the right people to help and just knowing who to contact and who would be able to assist in that part of the journey, I suppose. Yeah.
So this is a big lesson about building your network with many different people from many different places, and then not just staying in one place, taking where your passion and your interest takes you, and being brave enough to try new things, right? Because when you leave one situation and into another, you still take all that knowledge and friends and everything with you. And if you're nice to people, they're all nice back. So, yeah, so the hardest thing was having the opportunity to do it, and then thinking, okay, then I know nothing about this. Where can I go for help? And we have amazing people in our government. We just need to realise that they're there and make a phone call or ask.
Another question. So now that the seeds are here, what can we learn moving forward?
That's for you, Jackie?
Well, I don't know, Deb. First of all, we can learn that we can do this as a country. People talk about flight heritage, and often they're talking about satellites and robots. It doesn't have to be that. It can be things like seeds. And you think, like, a little seed, out of that a tree is going to grow. It's a little packet of amazingness. And then more seeds come from that. So it really simplifies things that going forward, what else? I would like to know what seeds should be next. We've done wattle, then what? Because what are the seeds? We're basil, herbs, and all of those things are being grown, lettuces. But as Australians, what would be a really cool thing to send next? Because that's what's next, right, Deb?
Yeah, yeah.
Grow it on the moon? Maybe.
Yeah.
We have another question. What were your favorite seeds? What are your favorite seeds?
I didn't have any. I now got wattle. Wattle is my favourite. What about you, Deb? What do you like to like? You're being on the farm and all of that. What's your favourite stuff?
I suppose any seeds really. I just like working with. I suppose a lot of the. I suppose the favourite seeds for me to work with are seeds grown by people who do a lot of farming as such. So rather than glasshouse seeds, I'm getting to speak to people who are out in rural areas farming, and yeah, it's probably those kind of seeds.
Yeah, wheat and stuff. And
Yeah.
I've got to say that I have some friends who are bonsai enthusiasts, and I've asked them to grow me some space wattle bonsai. So I'm looking forward to my little tiny wattle tree with my little astronaut that might just fit on my desk in a few years, because there are people who are enthusiasts around those things too. So, and I don't have a particular, like, I'm not like Deb. I don't have that kind of background. I'm terrified about growing my space wattle because I'm scared it's not going to work for me. But I've got Deb on the end of the phone. I'm sure she can help me out with it.
I don't know. I'm not that good with pot plants.
What was your strategy to overcome startup financial challenge in starting your agriculture business?
We don't, like, the thing is, we were asked, because we're the national coordinators for the Australian Space Agency on things, we don't have any funding. So basically, we had a little tiny bit of funding, but a lot of support. So people like Deb and everything, access to people like that, where we don't have to have an expert on our staff. So with agribusiness, it's very different. I don't have a block of land, so we're in a different agribusiness space than that. So I know that there are government grants and things like that, opportunities to do research with the CSIRO, for example. There's ways around starting your agribusiness, and there's lots of opportunities. I'm sure that Deb and Carol might be able to guide a bit with that. If that person would like to email us, we could probably help them along.
I personally have a question, and I'm pretty sure this is going to help a lot of the younger people on this Zoom. But what age were you when you figured out what you wanted to do? Like what career path you wanted to do? Like what age were you at when you discovered that you wanted to do agriculture?
For me, I was probably around, I suppose, end of high school. But I have 3 children that are all adults, and we have always encouraged them to sort of even have a gap year and to understand that you probably don't need to know what you wanted to do, you know, from the age of 18. So I think the most interesting people that you tend to meet are people that are more unsure of what they wanted to do, and they have a lot of experience in different areas. But I think some people are very much know what they want to do when they're younger, but some people don't, and that's okay. I suppose, people to know that it's okay not to know what you want to do as soon as you finish high school. Yeah.
No worries. So I'm a scientist. I'm fellow of the Royal Entomological Society. I work for the Department of Ag, Water and the Environment. I'm also a CSIRO STEM professionals in schools. I do training as well, and first degree was Ag and Environmental Science, and then I did applied entomology. So Jess sent me a list of questions, and I saw the questions and I thought, actually, I do have a presentation that would cover all of these, so I thought I'll just do the presentation today. So first thing, what inspired me to become a scientist? So here are a couple of, I really love bugs. Here are a couple of photos that I've taken of insects, because I just love the colors and everything. And I'll give you a bit of my background. So I grew up in England in a very multicultural area of Bristol, which is southwest of England, close to Bath. So there I am there, and I would have been about 7 or 8 there, and that's my teacher, Mrs. Peden. And then when I was about 10, my mum decided she was going to move me to a Catholic school, which was clear across town from Bristol, and I got to be taught by nuns. So this was my first year of high school. And so I did year 6 at the school, then I moved to the high school, and that's Sister Catherine Walsh. And during my first year of at St. Ursula's, and there you go, there I am, we did science, and I just loved science. I loved the fact that I could do experiments, I could go home and try the experiments, and the actual light bulb moment was when one of my teachers, Mrs. Brooking, told us that cats always landed on their feet. And I remember thinking, I've got a cat. So I won't go into details, but thanks to Tabby, and my cat Tabby looked like this, I went on in year 10 to do all of the sciences, so physics, chemistry, biology. I did maths, I did English and statistics. And in my year 12 exams, I did biology, maths and statistics. So my background, I'm from England originally, but my dad's from like Togo, Nigeria, and my mum's from Jamaica. And visiting those countries as children, I've got a brother now myself. I saw these plants growing, and does anybody know what these plants are? So feel free to unmute or put it in the chat box, and I'll ask someone to say, does anyone know what those are? I'd like to guess.
Coffee?
Cocoa?
Yeah, very good. So coffee and cocoa. So I'm in Jamaica, and I was in, like, when I went to visit the grandparents, and I saw these and I was like, what are these strange plants? And when they told me, oh, A, I love chocolate, and B, I also got to love coffee, so I still love coffee. So because of these, I decided I wanted to be an agricultural scientist. Another influence was David Attenborough. So I used to watch The Natural World and all of his programs as a child, and I still watch them. And so at uni, I did Ag and Environmental Science, which is like sustainable agriculture. And halfway through my degree, this is back in the 80s, people weren't that fussed about sustainable agriculture, but I had a class on crop protection, and I learned that up to 90% of a crop could be lost between pre-planting, pre-harvest, harvest, post-harvest, and then transportation. 90% of a crop could be lost because of insects. So I thought, okay, I'm going to study entomology and hopefully be able to reduce the incidence of insects so there's more food. So I specialized in non-chemical control measures, so using radiation or biological control or temperature, etc. And when I was at uni, for one of my projects, I looked at using microwaves to control little insects in flour. And then when I did my master's, I looked at using diseases that affect insects to control a beetle in coffee berry borer. So coffee berry borer is a really bad pest, and people want to try and control it because everyone loves coffee. If coffee berry borer becomes more dominant, price of coffee will go up. My first scientific positions, I was a volunteer in Jamaica, so I went back, stayed with my auntie, and I worked on stored product pests. And then I worked in a lab as lab assistant on aphids, which this time of year, if you've got any cabbages or roses at home, have a look. You might see those little green aphids or black aphids on them. Then I went over to South America as a volunteer, and I worked in Guyana, and I worked for the sugarcane industry, and I worked on biological control. And one of the things I did was use these little maggots that you see in a picture. They're wasps, parasitic wasp, that lays its eggs in a caterpillar. So the caterpillar damages the sugarcane, and the maggots will feed on this borer and kill the borer. So I did a lot of work on sugarcane and biological control and other pests as well that affected sugarcane. Then I went to Samoa in the South Pacific, and I was a United Nations volunteer out there, and I worked on fruit flies. So this picture top left is my lab in Samoa, and I worked on all different types of fruit flies, and you guys have probably heard of the Queensland fruit fly. So that kind of fly that lays its eggs and it has lots of maggots, and again, not a very nice pest. So I looked at identifying all the different pests species and also using non-chemical control measures to control fruit flies. So if you have a thick, prickly skinned fruit flies don't like laying eggs in those. So you can basically export jackfruit or rambutans, and you don't have to have any treatment for fruit fly. Also bananas, green bananas, fruit flies don't like green bananas. They'll lay in ripe bananas, but not green bananas. So all the bananas in the world are transported in a green stage, and that prevents fruit flies from being a pest. So apart from doing agricultural work, I also got to do a bit of environmental work in Vanuatu, and I worked for the United Nations Environment Programme. Did two projects, one project looking at sources of genetically modified foods in Vanuatu, and the only food that we could find in Vanuatu was actually tofu. So my friends who were vegetarians, who bought tofu because they thought it was nice and healthy, they were a bit shocked to hear that it had GMOs in. The other project I worked on was persistent organic pollutants, or POPs, and looked at sources of dioxins and furans, which are chemicals that people don't want in the environment. And one of the natural sources of these chemicals is actually volcanoes. So I got to visit the island in Vanuatu that has a volcano called Mount Yasa. So I took that picture during the daytime, and then we went back at night, and you got to see all of lava coming up. It was really awesome. It was really good. So what I like about working in developing countries is that farmers get to benefit and also families get to benefit. And that's some pictures in the Solomon Islands. Now, in mid-90s, I actually met an Aussie while I was in Samoa. And with my fruit fly background, I came over and started work for the agriculture department. And I worked in fruit and vegetable imports and exports, and cut flowers. And that's where I met Deb. Deb actually came and worked with me on a cut flower project I worked on. And one of my main job was to make sure that when visitors arrive in Australia, they don't bring pests and diseases on their fruit and veg. So here I am with Captain Cook. So I did a lot of work on fruit flies in Australia. I also got to travel with my job. So I've done, here I am on the top left in the Solomon Islands at the airport doing some checks of passengers' baggage. I'm in the background. I also got to go to China because I worked on table grapes from China. So I went over to have a look at how they grew their grapes. And pictured down the bottom there with me with a watermelon, that's something else that I'm passionate about. And that's the professionals in schools, which I'll talk about in a minute. What I'm doing at the moment is working in international capacity building. And I have two projects, one in Southeast Asia, where we're using mobile phones to record pests and diseases. And then the other job I have is working in the Pacific, where we're helping the Pacific produce all kinds of products that they can safely export within the Pacific and to Australia and New Zealand. So STEM professionals in schools. One of the things the department supports is my participation in this program. So I'm the STEM professional. I have two main teachers that I've worked with for almost 20 years total. So that's Mrs. Glanville on the left-hand side, and on the right, that's Mrs. Elliott. Ms. Elliott. My schools are, I've got 3 schools in the ACT, and I also have a remote partnership with Tagai State College in the Torres Strait Islands. So some of the things I do, I provide horticultural advice. I also do diagnostics, and that's rat damage on some popcorn that we grew. I also give entomological advice and talks. So here I am. So a lot of the stuff we do, it's connected to the Australian curriculum. So I give a talk on butterflies and moths to year 2s, year 1s, even preschoolers. We talk about famous caterpillars and their real life counterparts. And I also talk about biosecurities, as Deb was explaining. So here I am with some of my year 1 biosecurity warriors, which is, I work closely with New South Wales Department of Primary Industries. And talking of biosecurity, Australia has national priority plant pests. So we've got 42. And a couple of years ago, I was given some cards from New Zealand, which had all these lovely pests on. And I thought, oh, you know what? Australia can do that. And so my year 6s back in 2019, I had 52 year 6s. So each child got a national priority plant pest to research. And we developed some promotional cards and a PDF to celebrate the International Year of Plant Health, which was last year. And there I am with my teacher, Mrs. Elliott, celebrating the launch of that in Australia, in Canberra. So we also do a lot of, I help with growing various produce, and here is a harvest from one of my schools. So we've won successful junior gardeners, garden ribbons at the Canberra show for the last 4 years, and this is my school, Namaji, with their bountiful harvest and their ribbon and all their awards. So this year we decided we do a STEM project, so science, technology, arts and maths. So my students got to draw fruit, vegetables and nuts using visual arts. They then used technology to research scientific names and also used maths to look at the nutritional value of fruit and veg, because this year is the International Year of Fruits and Veggies. I didn't judge the paintings because I thought, oh, I'll ask my deputy secretaries for the department to judge the paintings. So they judged the paintings. And if you look closely, you can see me on the screen watching them. And I also had some Indigenous interns. So this is my Indigenous intern, Chelsea. And she is a landscape designer. So she gave me the names of a couple of fruit and veg that we could include, Indigenous fruit and veg, including kangaroo apple, that's bush banana, the green ones, and those at the bottom are macadamia nuts, which But a lot of people didn't realize that was indigenous food. And this year we've produced packs of Australia's fruits, nuts and vegetable cards with paintings that the children did and the research they did for the information on the carbohydrates and nutritional information. And these here are the indigenous suit. So each suit is different. So one suit, the hearts are tropical fruits and nuts. The clubs are vegetables. The spades are all temperate fruits, so pears and apples and cherries, etc. And then the diamonds are indigenous fruits, vegetables and nuts. So here's rye berries or lily pillies. And it was really interesting. The person who won, whose painting was selected for the lily pilly card, her name is actually Lily, which I thought was pretty awesome. And there's some macadamia nuts as well. So the Joker cards this year, we decided we'd add some questions so that the students could look into which fruit, vegetable and nuts are affected by the national priority plant pests. And my friend Chelsea, she's a beekeeper. So she asked a question, what fruit, vegetable and nuts are pollinated by bees? So another thing I like to do is a school connection. So Farah School did the pest and disease cards. And so we used for school colours, the green, so the green on the front of the packs of the cards, and the Magi, which is kind of a burgundy colour. So the pack of Australia's fruit, vegetable and nuts is in burgundy. And can't do any of this without support. So here are a number of organisations who helped and we worked together. So it's all about networking, as Jackie said. Here's some of the support, inspiration and thanks I have to give. So there's my students, my teachers, my DepSec and the Australia's Chief Plant Protection Officer who gave me money for the promotional cards. And we actually launched the cards during National Science Week this year. Here are my two teams, and the person at the bottom with the cup there, Lauren is the artist who drew the jokers for us. So both of my teachers have been recognised. Last year they won biosecurity commendation certificates. I love inspiring the next generation and getting children inspired and interested in growing fruit and veg, inspiring girls as well. The picture at the bottom there, that's myself and Matthew. So when Matthew was 7, I was helping the class. He's the same age as my son. And Matthew really loved agriculture and he went on to do agricultural science, and he's now working. He's done his 2nd year of working, having done agricultural science. So I told him he's like my poster boy. So I said, you've got to go into my talk. So I continue to inspire children. So at the top here is a picture by artist Abigail, age 6, who was inspired by the fruit, vegetable and nuts cards to draw her own fruit and vegetable and nuts. And this at the bottom, that's my great nephew in the blue and my great niece. And they love fruit and vegetables, and they're holding their favourite fruit and veg. Now, to celebrate International Year of Fruit and Veg, people are encouraged to take photos. I've been encouraging people to take photos, put them on social media. And this is my actual nephew, Spencer. So he loves lemons, and I kind of like to say that lemons inspired him. So he's a rower. He was in Japan and he won a gold medal. So I got him to take a photo, and I said to him, you've got to hold up your medal so people can see. So that's Spencer with his favourite fruit. So make sure you post a picture of you with your favourite fruit, hashtag it IYFB 2021. I'd like to say that being an entomologist and being an ag scientist, just inspirational. Even Barbie wants to be an entomologist, and this is Barbie entomologist. I noticed they didn't come very diversified, so I did make my own Barbie entomologist that I've donated to a couple of my schools, so they actually have Barbie entomologists at their schools. So when I give a lot of these talks, especially to year 10s about the careers in science, and they're all really interested in where you can travel with the fact that I've travelled with science. So these are a number of countries where I've lived and worked. due to being a scientist. Okay, so I'd like to finish off there. I did time it, and it was like, should just make it within the 20 minutes. So I'd like to say thank you for listening. Any questions, and hopefully this will work. Right. I said to Jess that I actually will have some giveaways, because we were planning to go out and go to all kinds of places during Science Week and give out cards, but because of COVID, we ended up having a lot of cancellations. So I actually do have a couple of spare packs of cards. So first 10 entries to send me the name of an indigenous fruit, vegetable or nut can win a pack of the Australia's fruits, nuts and vegetable cards. Or the first 10 entries, if you want the pest and disease ones, send me the name of one of Australia's national priority plant pests. So do a Google search. There's my email address. And yeah, so back to questions. If anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer them.
That was absolutely amazing. Thank you for your presentation. There is a question. What are some problems that entomologists are currently trying to solve?
Oh, awesome questions. So it's funny when people get answered questions and I'm watching them on TV and they go, oh, awesome question. And I'm like, oh yeah, right. But for Australia, one of the biggest problems we've had, and it's a national priority plant pest, is the fall armyworm. So when we did these cards back in 2019, beginning of 2020, fall armyworm was moving. It came from Africa across Asia, and it was moving down through Indonesia. And we were like, oh, if it gets into PNG, it's going to be crazy. And fall armyworm has actually crossed over. It can fly up to 100 kilometers a day. It's actually come into Australia, causing a lot of havoc on our maize, and it's worked its way all the way down south. It's now in Victoria. So that's one of our major pests. It's still in our national priority plant pest, but there's not a lot we can do about it now because it's already here. And as a caterpillar, it can be easily confused with some of our native caterpillars that grow here, some of our native armyworms. So that's definitely a pest we don't want. I am an entomologist, but I do know my plant pathologist friends, Xylella, the international sign for Xylella. Xylella is a disease that we also don't want here. Luckily, that hasn't arrived. And so we keep stringent lookout, making sure our biosecurity are up to date to prevent Xylella coming into Australia.
That was a really good answer, thank you. But I have a question now, if everyone doesn't mind. What is one piece of advice that you would give to everyone on this Zoom to take away with?
One piece of advice, I would say, let's see, follow your dreams. When I decided I wanted to do agriculture, to go to uni, so I actually failed all my exams, year 12, because I had various, I guess now they call them mental health issues. So I failed all my exams, but then got over those, retook them, and when my aunts actually got good results. So my mum's one of 15 in Jamaica and grew up, my grandfather was a farmer. And when my aunts, my uncles found out that I'd got into uni, but I was going to study agriculture, they actually were like, oh my gosh, Carol is wasting her degree. She wants to be a farmer. But I say, follow your dreams, because, and then also when I went and became a volunteer, they were even more like, oh my gosh, she's become a farmer and she's a volunteer. Poor thing will never earn any money. They were quite, they thought I'd thrown away my degree, but follow your dreams, because you never know where you're going to end up. And getting into the agriculture department, being able to share the work that I do, I started off volunteering as a professional in schools, but I had some inspirational team leaders, including Gabrielle, who's the Australian Chief Plant Protection Officer, and my current manager or director, Jenny Dunn, who said, you shouldn't have to volunteer. This is in the work you do at schools is in the department's interest. So I actually get paid to attend the schools one day a fortnight. and I get to wear my lovely uniform here. And so this too is like part of the work I do. And so follow your dreams, because you'll enjoy it. As someone said, if you're doing something you're passionate about, it doesn't feel like work. And working in agriculture, I have not felt like I've been working since, actually never. Even now, I just feel that it's just one of the best jobs in the world. Great thing about agriculture is that everybody has to eat. And so it's just, yeah, inspirational. I also enjoy at the schools the fact that we can grow fruit and veg, and there are children who will eat fruit and vegetables that their parents say they never eat that at home, but because they've grown it, they love eating it. So yeah, it's just awesome. And a lot of crossovers, because usually this time of the year, I'd be taking seeds and seedlings that my students would have grown at school and take them into the department. And the department, every year around this time, they're always asking me, when are your seeds coming in? And they'll buy seedlings from me. We've raised like $300 in the past, but go to the schools and they'll build greenhouses or buy pots and other things that they need. So yeah, it's great. And like I said, if you have a passion about something, follow your passion, because you never know where you're going to end up. Because growing up in England, watching David Attenborough and experimenting with tabby, if someone had said you were going to end up in Australia, that would have been the last thing I would have thought about, with kangaroos bouncing down in front of my house. I definitely would not have thought about that. But just really, really enjoyed my the pathway I've taken. I wouldn't have made any chance, especially not failing my exams the first time around, because if I'd passed them, I would have been a biometrist instead of an agricultural scientist.
Thank you for that advice. I think we have one more time for another question, and Gabriella has one. What do you think is the most harmful plant pest in Australia?
Oh, the most harmful plant pest. So it depends on who you're talking to, because if you grow grain, then you might say it's a stored product. Oh, actually, no, I do know who. I won't stop sharing. I'll let the people make a note of my email address. I would say the worst pest, especially at the moment, is rats and mice. So we've actually, this week, when we were listening to our divisional news, we're having committee meetings, because after all the wonderful rain we have, we've got this bumper wheat harvest, and grains are actually some of our biggest harvest. Wheat and barley, we export those and make a lot of money. And so the damage that mice are doing and rats, those are our biggest pests, definitely at the moment. Yeah. And some of those pictures, my family overseas, when they see the pictures of all these hundreds of mice just running everywhere, they're quite horrified. Yeah. So yeah, I'd say definitely mice. So pests and diseases, we're taking a back seat at the moment and letting the mice take over.
Thank you so much for answering that. Deborah, do you have anything else you would like to add?
Just on the advice, so when you asked Carol before any advice, I would say, yeah, work on what, sort of follow your dream and do what you're passionate about. Try hard, work hard, but just be aware you will make mistakes, and that's okay. Admit to them, get back up and keep going, and you'll get there. You could just keep trying and you'll get to where you need to go.
Thank you so much for that advice. That both of your advices were great. I know personally I'm going to take them on board. I'm sure many others on this Zoom call will. And I feel like no matter what age you are, you can still keep trying to do whatever you want. Thank you so much for this Zoom call today. It has been a pleasure to talk to you. I'm pretty sure the Gadget girls and everyone on here is so thankful. I have learnt so much. I'm pretty sure a lot of others have. And it's been, like I said, it's been a pleasure to have you guys here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you very much for inviting me. And I'd like to special thank you to Deb, who, when she was invited, she actually said to me, I know you do this often. Would you like to join me? So I'd never heard of Gadget Girls before then. And so I'd like to say thank you, Deb, and thank you, Jackie, for the invite. And Jackie, I'd love, if you have any spare seeds, I have a couple of schools that would be definitely interested in getting some of those been to space and back wattle seeds.
Yeah, we're actually working on maybe sending some overseas. So Deb's helping me with that. So yeah, keep in contact with me because that's a possibility for sure. But thank you both so much, and congratulations, Jess, on a great teleconference tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Jess.
Thank you so much.
I also wanted to say thank you to Carol and to Jackie for both inspiring me. I'm always inspired by both of them.